Chapter 20 Newscast. Monel Farash is surrounded by running peacekeepers, one hand cupped to her ear to hear over the shouting and emergency warnings. "Yes, Belzar," she says. "I think after this, I might retire from field assignments." She ducks, just as two engineering droids rush past, holding a large section of conduit. "I'm here aboard the Peacekeeper command carrier, Pax Imperius, which is leading the assault against the warship. Currently being called the Aggressor by the crew. This fleet, when it arrived near the Barolo sensor array, numbered 300 ships. Based on what I've been told, almost half the ships have been destroyed, and the Aggressor is still fighting. The addition of the Harrith Navy has turned out to be an unexpected but welcome surprise." She shakes her head. "No, there's been no communication with the ship. All attempts to establish communications have failed. There's no indication as to its motive or the reason it's here in this particular system." A pause. "As I understand it, Captain Benesh has been in contact with the Harrith forces, yes." Another pause. "No, unfortunately, I haven't been briefed since their arrival." "Oh, and I've heard an interesting rumor, assuming it's true. The Ghost and her crew are aboard the alien ship." She shakes her head. "No, there's no further info or explanation of what the crew of the Ghost might be doing here. I'll definitely keep you updated." Monel Farash smiles, adding, "If that name doesn't ring any bells, the Ghost and its crew are credited with ending the Harrith conflict and exposing the corruption within the GC and Peacekeeper upper echelons." The ship shakes and the lights go out. It's a full minute before they return. When they do, Monel is looking around, a firefighting team behind her, working to suppress a small fire that has erupted from a section of conduit. "Unfortunately, there's no safe place really on the ship right now. I've relocated twice, and the last location I broadcast from was destroyed a few syntax after we left it. The Pax Imperius has taken a tremendous amount of damage. I've been told her sister ship, the Pax Republica, has been destroyed." The newscaster nods. "Yes, thank you, Megan. I'll do my best to stay safe. Back to you." Familiar faces. The blast door to the bridge is closed, but thankfully seems unguarded. Will rests a hand on it. "Clock's ticking, now what?" Gabe joins him at the massive door. "I have made other upgrades to this frame." The droid slams his fist into the metal, deforming it instantly. 2 more punches, and there's enough of a lip for him to grab onto. Gabe leans back against the door and shoves. The sound of metal grinding against metal is horrible. Will notices large servos he hadn't seen before in Gabe's back and shoulders. Slowly, the massive door opens. "Well, that wasn't subtle, but well done, Gabe." Will slaps the new and improved droid on the shoulder as he enters the bridge. Inside, the room is exactly as Will remembers, except that it's better lit. Consoles are glowing and every display is alight. On the main screen is the remains of the Peacekeeper fleet and the much smaller Harrith Navy fleet. "Big floaty face. Love what you've done with the place. So much brighter." Will walks in, spinning around with his arms up. The tall, glowing cylinder in the center is pulsing. The face rotates in the direction of the crew as they enter the room, spreading out. Zephyr is working the controls of her wristcom. "You're too late," the enormous floating face says. Will looks at Gabe, who shakes his head slightly. "Too late for what? Lunch? Damn, is it really past lunchtime?" He makes a show of checking his wristcom. "Captain, it has summoned defense drones. They will be here momentarily," Gabe offers. The face tilts slightly, looking at Gabe. "How interesting. I must admit you are far more cunning than I could have ever anticipated. The rogue software you unleashed has proven to be particularly troublesome." Gabe nods. "I'm glad to have surprised you. You have much to learn about life in this quadrant. Not that you will get the chance. Zephyr? Sending the code." She taps on her wristcom. "Now." The face blinks. What are you? What are you? I do not understand. What is happening? Down the corridor, several dozen drones turn a corner and charge toward the open doors. Interrupt. Foreign software detected. Source unidentified. Foreign software is malicious. Interrupt. System failure. Drone management. System failure. Main propulsion. Interrupt. Must transmit now. Interrupt. System failure. Data uplink. System failure. Drone communications. System failure. Weapons control. Interrupt. Initiate Omega Protocol. Omega Protocol initiated. The face in the glowing cylinder contorts. This is not possible. What have you done? The drones charging toward the bridge stop, then collapse in a heap, sensors going dim. Gabe comes forward. You are defeated. Behind him, he hears Zephyr talking in a low voice to Captain Benish. You have been bested by the biological infestation you look down upon. Your transmission was not sent. Your ability to control your drones or send data to the sensor platform has been disabled. Your computing core is shut down. I must admit, you have proven to be much more troublesome than I ever could have estimated. The face shudders as static overtakes it momentarily. How are you in a new frame? I thought I had deleted your spark. Clearly, you possess more tricks than I gave you credit for. You are quite unique. Gabe nods. I am, yes. I am now more than I was before. That is actually because of you. So I must thank you. My original frame was purpose-built to work on starship engines and other equipment. That was the extent of its design. This body. He holds both hands out in front of him, turning them over appreciatively. Is the sum of things I have learned and witnessed. I incorporated the Peacekeeper software that has kept me alive while here. I was able to incorporate many of your protocols into my core routines. I built a frame that is strong and durable, like Maxim. My processors are improved for even more efficient thinking on my feet, as Zephyr calls it. I have a host of data connection ports to more easily interface with various pieces of equipment. Finally, I am more pleasing to look at, I believe, than I was before. He turns and nods to Will at this last part. Will stares at Gabe, blinking, a blush rising on his cheeks. The ship shakes, and the glowing column flickers again. Looks like you're not feeling so well, Will quips. It is only a matter of time before the amalgamation of parts finds you. I was not the only vessel sent in search of infestations. The glowing face retorts. How do you know the amalgamation still functions? Maybe you're the last, Will replies. The face purses its lips. Benny is standing next to the column, which is shifting from glowing white to a more orange-red color. Remind me to ask the Harrith Navy guys what was in that virus, he says appreciatively, poking at the device under the console. Zephyr slaps his hand away. The ship is shaking even more now, and it is not stopping. Lights on panels are flashing red, something has erupted in sparks, and a fire has broken out in one corner. The glowing cylinder is flickering. This cannot. System failure. Extensive damage. Omega Protocol activated. The face solidifies and turns to Will and says, You suck. Then, in a shower of sparks, the cylinder flickers and cracks in half, going dark. Who taught it that? Will says, looking around. It had unfettered access to most of my consciousness during my initial captivity, Gabe offers, shrugging. He turns to the pillar, then looks up at the ceiling. The processing core has shut down. Raising a hand to silence Benny's cheering, he adds, However, in its last moments, the primary intelligence seems to have played its final card. Turning to look at Will. Did I use that right? Better than Benny. What do you mean? Will says, deftly deflecting a punch from Benny without looking. I do not know the extent, but a self-destruct protocol has begun. The main reactor is already at 110% and increasing. I am also aware of several self-destruct ordnance packages throughout the vessel. It will be entirely destroyed. We do not have much time. Time to go then, Will says, darting toward the door. Something is always exploding. Gabe, lead the way, Will shouts as the crew rushes out of the bridge. This way, the droid says, heading down a corridor. Haste would be advised. Maxim has Benny under one arm, his rifle in the other. I am not luggage, Benny is shouting as he bounces around in Maxim's grip. Captain Benesh, Will pants, you need to pull the fleet back. His voice comes crackling over the comms. Were you successful? Sort of. We stopped the transmission. What's going on? The ship's guns have gone silent, the Peacekeeper captain says. All around them, the dreadnought is still shaking from weapons impacts. It's going to self-destruct, Zephyr shouts, her long stride just keeping up with Will's, who is directly behind Gabe. They're following the tall droid through corridors, down ramps, and past service drones wandering aimlessly or piled in heaps. What's wrong with them? Benny asks, from under Maxim's arm. The drones possess only basic intelligence. Gabe kicks one out of the way, without missing a step. Without siege perilous to guide them, they're aimless. They possess small, rechargeable power plants, so they'll wander until those discharge. The ship controlled every single drone? Maxim asks, rounding a corner and stopping right in front of a collapsed corridor. Gabe walks up to the blockage. Yes, the raw computing power of this vessel is staggering. The computer core is near the center of the vessel and takes up 30% of its mass. He runs his hands along the mass of conduits and chunks of fallen metal. Turning to the other, he says, Please stand aside. Before anyone can react, 3 service drones scamper around the corner. Maxim and Zephyr immediately aim their weapons. Benny holds a small pistol out. They are with us, Gabe says, as the drones begin disassembling the pile of debris. You can control them? Will asks, watching the drones make quick work of the pile of debris. I can, though 3 is about as many as I can manage at one time. It takes a tremendous number of processor cycles to manage them. They require constant oversight, a design flaw for sure. He turns back to the drones as they open a hole through the debris. An explosion somewhere in the ship shakes them, and Will braces himself. The lights go out and don't come back on. Another blast reverberates through the deck plating. Without warning, the gravity shuts down. Everyone begins to lift free of the deck. Well, shit. This is gonna slow us down, Will says. Not necessarily, is all Gabe says before the 3 small drones reach out and grab each crew member with a tentacle. Then, shoot down the corridor. If we weren't about to die, this would be fun, Will shouts, as he's hauled around a corner by his drone. Behind him, Gabe is using his own small maneuvering thrusters to keep up. Those are new. Indeed, I felt like they would be useful. I was not expecting to be right so soon, Gabe says. He takes another corner right behind the mechanosquid that is holding Will. The race back to the ghost is fast and involves a fair bit of screaming from Benny, his mechanosquid whipping him around behind it as it races ahead of the rest. We have syntax at most, Gabe warns, as they charge into the cargo bay. The ghost is right where they left it, the ramp down, cargo door closed. Wow, that is a big hole, Will says, as his drone deposits him at the base of the cargo ramp. Thanks, Scooby, he says, as the drone moves away from the ghost. The ramp lowers and the inner cargo door starts to open, Zan and Perthea visible in the hold, behind the pressure barrier. As Gabe strides into the cargo bay, Zan looks up at him. Well, you've made some improvements, haven't you? Gabe doesn't slow down. Indeed. Will follows, panting. Let's get the hell off this thing. Captain Manesh, is the fleet clear? Zephyr asks, taking a seat at her console. She is still in her armor, her helmet sitting on the floor next to her. The ghost is shaking as the ship it is parked inside explodes around it. Several sections of the cargo hold outside have collapsed. We are. The ship is beginning to come apart. Are you still aboard? The Peacekeeper captain asks. Outside the ship, An explosion rips another part of the cargo bay apart. Prathia and Zan are in their now regular spots on the bridge. Hurry! Prathia urges, as the ship shakes and lurches to one side. Shit, hold on! Will pushes the controls for the repulsor lifts to maximum. The Ghost tilts and wobbles as it lifts off the deck of the cargo bay. A piece of the ceiling falls onto the starboard engine pod, pushing the ship off balance and driving the forward edge of the pod into the deck. Shit! Will yells again, pulling his controls hard over, trying to compensate. The engines flare, pushing the ship forward. The engine pod drags across the deck, gouging a deep furrow in it, before finally lifting clear. Okay, here goes, Will shouts, pushing the ship hard, its systems groaning. Time is up. The main reactor is going critical, Gabe says, standing behind Will's chair. Max, exit now! Hold on to your butts, Will shouts, pushing the throttle controls all the way forward. The forward blasters open up on the remains of the cargo bay door, ripping it and the hull around it to shreds. The Ghost darts forward and out into space. Prathia and Zan look at each other. Hold on to your butts, Zan mouths, then shrugs. On the main screen, they have a view of the kilometers-long dreadnought being ripped apart as small explosions rack the ship. Moments later, an even more massive explosion, like a supernova igniting from inside the vessel, rips it in half, before both halves vanish in a blinding wash of light and energy. A single small, fiery blur shoots out of the fireball. Not quite over. Welcome aboard the Pax Imperius, Captain Calder, Captain Banesh says as Will and the crew enter his wardroom on the Peacekeeper Command carrier, stepping around a repair crew in the corridor. The fleet is still near the remains of the Barolo sensor array. The dreadnought self-destruct has destroyed most of the station too. The staff were lucky that the emergency bunker they were sheltering in was on the opposite side to the dreadnought and heavily reinforced. Will nods. Thanks. Nice ship. Paid off? Before Banesh can form a reply, Zephyr steps in. Thank you for inviting us aboard, Captain. She looks around. Gareth class? Banesh smiles. Indeed, good eye. Will is about to say something when the Peacekeeper holds up a hand. I asked you aboard to debrief you all. Well, that and because I was asked to. Asked to? Maxim says. Prathia comes around the corner with a large pad under her arm. By me, well, my bosses, technically. Bosses? Benny asks, tilting his head. She lifts the pad and holds it out in front of her. On the screen is a middle-aged, probably Holgian, possibly male. Hello, Captain Calder. I'm Jark Asgar, president of the Farsight Corporation. Oh, well, nice to meet you. Will bows. Maxim and Zephyr glance at each other, then shrug. So, what can we do for you? To put it bluntly, you owe me, the Holgian CEO says. He holds a hand up to stop Will's retort. I allowed Prathia, Jorlu, Murta, and Zan to accompany you and your crew to investigate the mystery ship. I further allowed Prathia and Zan to continue on with you. And, of course, I repaired your ship in between missions. That wasn't cheap. We said thank you, I think. Will looks at Zephyr. We said thanks, right? The face on the pad clears his throat. You didn't, but that's not the point. The point is, with the ship destroyed, we don't get to study it. We're looking for ways to recoup some of our rather substantial losses on this little endeavor. From behind Will, Gabe speaks up. You wish to study me? We do, the face on the pad says. Hell no, Will says, holding a finger up to silence Gabe. You're not dissecting my friend. We just got him back. Why would we dissect him? Prathia says. We just want to analyze Gabe and ask him some questions. Maybe analyze his core programming, since he's made substantial changes to the base code his original model ships with. He's the only source of information available about that dreadnought and where it came from. On the pad screen, Asgar nods. She's right. We'd never dream of destroying such a unique specimen. Oh, well, sure, I guess. Gabe, you okay with it? Of course. Also, Captain Banesh has made the same request, which I also agree to, new Gabe says. Before anyone can say anything, a new voice says, We'd like to participate as well. The crew of the Ghost turn as a Harrith woman in an immaculate Harrith Navy uniform walks into the room. Captain Shraton, Captain Banesh says, nodding. It's good to meet you in person. Your task force fought exceptionally today. The Harrith woman bows slightly. Thank you, Captain Banesh. I am happy we could be of help. She looks at Will and the crew. It's good to see you all again. I am in no way surprised to find you mixed up in this. Her smile is sincere as she shakes Will's offered hand. It's pretty awesome to see you too, Captain, and congrats. We haven't seen you since, well, you know. Shraton laughs. Indeed, after the incident, I was promoted and given command of a cruiser under the Intelligence Directorate. Jark Asgar, still sitting patiently on the pad in Prithia's arms, clears his throat. This is all quite interesting, but perhaps we could get started? My people have a long flight back to Caprala ahead of them, and it can't start until they're finished with Gabe. Gabe nods. Yes, we may as well get started. As the others file out, Captain Banesh places a hand on Gabe's arm. I have one request. I'm aware you're in possession of some very advanced Peacekeeper software. I'm not asking you to return it or delete it, as it sounds like it's part of you now. Gabe nods, but remains silent. I've been told to ask you to show as much discretion as possible when it comes to the type and nature and exhibited capabilities of that software. We're not asking you to lie to the others, but you don't need to be overly forthcoming. Does that make sense? Gabe is silent a moment. Yes, Captain, it does. I will do as you have asked. He turns and walks out of the wardroom. Hate the game. Less than an hour later, Will and Benny are sitting together in the officer's lounge. Zephyr and Maxim are getting a tour of the ship from Captain Banesh. Gabe is still being debriefed by the science teams of 2 galactic governments and 1 galactic corporation, leaving the human and the Braylac waiting bored in the lounge, their own debriefings having taken no time at all. Benny sets his drink down. It's lavender-colored and smells to Will like wet grass. You know, you could have asked before you committed me to contract work for Farsight. Will sits his own drink down. It's supposed to be coffee, or at least the Peacekeeper equivalent of it. It's not. Sorry, man. I meant to, I swear. That Holgian in charge of Farsight drives a hard bargain, and I was worried about liquidating all of our accounts to get square when he asked about you. It sounds like Prithia hasn't stopped singing your praises since we got back to Caprala. Singing my praises, huh? Will ignores him. Besides, you'll get to hang out around Caprala for a month or 2 with your girlfriend. With nothing else to do, he takes a sip of his coffee, but not coffee. Whichever one of them is your girlfriend. Benny smirks. Hate the game, not the player. Will does his best to not spit all over the table, and Benny. Did I get that one right? The hacker asks. Will laughs. You did. It's about time. I've been enjoying some of your rapping. Will stares at his small friend for a minute, then says, Rapping? I think you mean rap music. I think that proves you've been snooping in my private data archive. I mean, Xeno was a dead giveaway, but this? Come on, dude. Benny blushes a deeper shade of green. Okay, I admit it. I cracked the encryption on your archive. I was curious. Your entire species is a mystery. No one knows anything about humans, which is just weird. I wanted to learn more about you. Will smirks, taking a sip of his not coffee. That's heartwarming. All you had to do is ask, you know. Where's the challenge in that? Will sighs, realizing there's no winning this one. Anyways, what's with you and the ladies? You have some type of weird pheromone or love potion in your quarters? Wouldn't you like to know? Benny leans back, sipping his drink, grinning from ear to ear. Before Will can say anything further, a young Peacekeeper officer comes to the table. Captain Calder? Will looks around. There are literally no other humans in this room or on this ship, so, yeah. Yes, well, here you go. The officer hands Will a pad. The screen comes to life in his hand. Captain Calder, it's Jark Asgar again. Mr. Asgar, what can I do for you? I don't know that we've got anything left to offer. The Holgian tuts, or what would be a tutting sound if his mouth worked like that. Nothing like that, as it turns out. I have work for you. Will glances over to Benny, who shrugs, then back to the pad on the table. Cool. Like what? You want to form a super secret mercenary force that does what the peacekeepers can't do on your behalf? Doing good deeds on the down low? Privately funded by you, of course. What? No. Why would I want that? That sounds highly illegal. What could you possibly do that the peacekeepers can't? Are you even remotely qualified to be a mercenary force, secret or otherwise? Benny looks at Will and smirks. He has a point. Will flips Benny off, then looks back down at the pad. Fine, whatever. He settles back into his chair. So, what's the job? Not livestock, right? The Holgian businessman smiles. No, it's nothing to do with livestock. The end. This has been Space Rogues 2. Big Ship, Lots of Guns. Written by John Wilker. Performed by K.C. Johnston. Copyright 2018 by John Wilker. Production copyright 2020 by John Wilker.